So, welcome back, everyone, to the second episode of the We Mean Business podcast. I'm your host again, Austin. Today, I'm here with a really special guest, Ben Bazak. Ben's a recent track grad, and we're going to just talk about his time at university so far. So, Ben, I'll let you introduce yourself, tell everyone what school you go to, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Ben Bazak. I study math at the University of Waterloo and business at Laurier. I'm part of the co-op program. So I've worked at RBC Brookfield, and I'm currently on a co-op term at BC Investment Management. So out in Victoria. And yeah, excited to kind of delve into more details.
Cool, cool. So just to kind of start off, a big thing that we've been talking about when applying to university is setting up options, so other options. So if you could remind everyone first about your time in grade 12, what other programs you applied to or thought about going to, and where else you got accepted, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I think I was also in a slightly different time period with COVID. So we had quadmesters. So our final grades would have been available earlier on. I know I was originally only applying to business programs. I had always had my eyes set on McGill management as where I wanted to be. Loved the city of Montreal and thought that made sense for me. However, I realized in grade 12 that I wanted to continue doing math, which kind of threw a wrench in that. But the programs that I applied to and took seriously were McGill Management, Queen's Commerce, the Laurier double degree, and I also applied to, I believe, U of T and McMaster.
Got it. Very cool.
And all of those would have been business programs.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that's cool. So what schools did you get into, if you don't mind me asking? And then, was there kind of a dilemma between the different schools that you got into?
For sure. So I would have had an easier decision than most because I realized I wanted to continue doing math. So in about January, I think by then I had acceptances from the Laurier double degree program as well as McMaster. And I had decided that I wanted to continue studying math. So I accepted then. I then never completed, I believe, my Queen's kind of supplemental application. I did not get into Queen's, although I had already accepted before they sent out acceptances. So that one didn't hurt too much. I did get into McGill Management, and I turned that one down. And I believe U of T, I got a late acceptance in like May.
Got it. Got it. So when you made the decision, you made it very early, obviously, probably a lot earlier than most people. Did you go visit the school first? And if so, did the school's social life at all play a role in your decision?
So it's funny you asked that because I had actually never been to the city of Waterloo when I chose to go there. However, I did have the advantage of speaking with a lot of people that had gone to the school and knew about the atmosphere. I know I had a lot of friends who had older siblings who were at Laurier, to a lesser extent Waterloo, and I knew what I was getting myself into with the social life. I know Laurier has a pretty solid reputation of very easy to make friends there and get around, whereas Waterloo does not and has a reputation of a lot more difficulty with that and less socialization. So I knew that I would have an interesting balance of it, but I made sure to ask around to ensure I was making the right decision with it. I also learned early on about the kosher residence at Laurier, which was something that really excited me, a good opportunity to meet Jews not from other schools as well that were going to Laurier. So I'm also happy to expand on kind of what that is as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you could talk a little bit about that, how that works, that'd be
Yeah, for
cool.
sure. So there's an option at Laurier for you to sign up for kosher residence, which allows you to have an apartment style residence with 3 to 4 other Jewish students. It was a really great way to immediately kind of build those bonds with other Jews on campus. Laurier doesn't have the same, it's still a very big Jewish community, but compared to Western and Queens, it's obviously smaller. So having that starting base was really cool. And I was able to meet a lot of my good friends just in the building there. And it's a nice addition. And for me, was a good security of I know I have that community.
Yeah, that's cool that you had some Jews that you were obviously going to be living with in year one. So then something we try to emphasize a lot in grade 12 is extracurriculars. So I was wondering if you could touch on some of your extracurriculars that you did before in grade 12, and hopefully that'll show other students how that correlates to kind of helping you get into university.
For sure. So in grade 11 and 12, I was definitely pretty involved and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. But I believe in grade 12, I was the president or ran, I want to say, three clubs. So the first one was Mali United Nations, and I was an executive on that from grade 10 onwards. So that was really cool being able to kind of run the conferences. I was the head of politics club in grade 11 and 12, which I imagine is still as controversial as it was then. And I was the head of the competitive debate tournament. So we ran a debate tournament in grade 11 and grade 12 when I was there, which allowed like debate format, proper format, and just have those debates. And I also competed in those in both Molly UN and debate. And I also was very involved in DECA. Um, I was I ran the finance room as was an instructor there. So those were kind of my main involvements. And I found that it was really helpful to have stuff like that to put on supplementary applications for scholarships and stuff like that. It also allowed me to apply for scholarships outside of even the university atmosphere. I know I got a scholarship from Associated Hebrew Schools for my extracurricular involvement as well. So there's a lot of being able to expand on who I am as a person because of that experience. I know for Laurier they offer a few different types of scholarships, and um, definitely having stuff like that would help. And I know it would be beneficial for all universities. But being able to show who you are as a person is a lot easier when you demonstrate that with extracurriculars.
Yeah, I know for me too. It's a lot easier to write supplementals and explain to the universities about who I am, especially in those video interviews, because I have extracurriculars that I can talk about. So it definitely helps a lot.
How are
Moving
the video
on,
interviews? Before I move on, how are the
yeah.
video interviews?
So the interviews are good. I think they're very stressful if you put a lot of pressure on yourself beforehand. I'm kind of in a similar boat to you where I knew I didn't want commerce. So for the interview, I didn't really put my a full effort in. And because of that, I felt like it was one of my strongest interviews because I just wasn't stressed about it. I was just like easygoing. They're not, I wouldn't say they're hard. There's a lot of preparation you can do beforehand. So that helps a lot. And usually some kids do it super early with advisors that they pay for. So it helps when you can hear from those kids how it went, and then you can kind of tailor your answers to what you know the questions are going to be. Did you guys
Makes sense.
not
And
have
also,
them when you applied?
no, so that's a newer thing, and I personally hate them. I love talking to a person, so even for jobs where they require a video interview beforehand, I pretty much just don't apply to them anymore because they never feel good to me and always feel disingenuous. So I avoid them at all costs. But well, you guys have to, so I know it's probably not ideal. Congratulations, by the way. I saw you accepted, so
Yeah,
I'm happy.
thank you. I appreciate that. So then the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit like of the school environment. You were really involved in high school, obviously. Do you still keep that same level of involvement now? Are you involved in clubs, sports teams, or other organizations? And if so, what kind of groups are you involved with?
So I'm definitely involved at different levels. My program is fairly rigorous because often I'm going to be taking six courses at a time instead of just five, and I also have to be taking the main math courses and the main business courses, so I don't really get electives. So I knew that I was limited in the number of extracurriculars I could do. However, I love being involved in kind of like having those sense of community. So I decided it made sense to be involved in less, but still have that high level commitment. So for me, that includes a lot of Jewish involvement with both Chabad and Hillel on campus. I'm also going to be the president of AEPI starting next semester. Was the vice president when I was on campus last semester, and
Congrats.
that's thank you, and that's a really great way to have a good combination of that social atmosphere, but also the community building. Working with the Chabad rabbi to plan events and having us work in tandem is really important, and it's really fun. Like there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. Obviously, hosting parties and stuff like that. But beyond that, just building that community atmosphere. I also am planning slash working on going through applications of being IAs. Um, I know that's just another good way to make money. So I know for sure I'll be marketing in the fall, but ideally I'll also be an instructional assistant. So if you're coming to Laurier, I'll hopefully teach you. Uh, but that's another good way to have more involvement and also get some money on the side.
Cool. And then you kind of just touched on it a little bit, but I'll ask you to talk about a little bit more. Balancing that school and social life. Have you found that difficult? What are some strategies you recommend to earlier first year and second year students?
But before I continue, I realized I also missed on the sports thing. I try and do like an intramural team a semester, and that's something that's also good. But on the balancing, I in general find that if you go 100% onto social life or 100% onto school, you're going to at some point fail. Social life, evidently, you're not going to be able to pass your courses. But if you're going fully into school and don't have that social atmosphere, you are going to burn out because that's just not a good build. First semester, I found was a huge, huge transition for me because it's first time really living by yourself, first time having to organize your own schedules. No one's making you go to class, no one's making you do stuff like that. So I think there is a learning curve of figuring out what you need to do, finding your balance of studying and how far ahead you need to stay of deadlines, especially if you have courses that have quizzes and weekly stuff like that. I think for me now, the most important thing I find is scheduling. So that means first week of the semester, your whole schedule should be planned out in a sense of one assignments when they're due, everything like that. But to a lesser extent, but still important, have a sense of when you want to start studying for midterms. I've had some semesters where it's 10 midterms in one semester, which is
Wow.
completely insane, two per course. And with that, you're essentially doing every week midterm. So you have to almost overlap your study. So studying for two midterms at once, going back and forth and balancing that and understanding how to balance multiple courses at once with that. I think that is one thing that you guys will have an advantage on that I didn't. Quadmesters, I think, took that away from me a little bit, only 2 to 3 courses at once, whereas you guys are taking 9 to 11. So that'll be a good experience to have that balance.
Yeah, so that's obviously a plus side of going to chat. We're all lucky to be going there. And now, talking a little bit about your program specifically, I have some friends who I play hockey with who are applying, not Jewish kids. They're applying to Waterloo math programs as well. So I was wondering if you could talk about a little bit about what the program is like, what it entails, what you're learning, and then also if you could touch a little bit about how the co-op works within the double degree programs.
For sure. So what I'll do is I'll first explain Waterloo, then Laurier, then the double degree, just because I know there are differences with that. So Waterloo Math Program is a really, really cool program in Canada because it's very unique. There aren't many dedicated math degrees. You graduate the Bachelor of Mathematics, which isn't very normal. So with that, you really get started immediately. So within first year, you're taking Calc 1, Calc 2, discrete algebra, linear algebra, and then 2 CS courses. So that's another thing with the math program is you're required to take CS courses, which I think is really, really beneficial because it's giving you that leg up on potentially other mathematics students. But it is quickly very, very difficult, for me at least, um, because it is a lot of people that would have come from IB or AP programs. So they would have likely learned a lot of the material previously, whereas I was coming in and this was for the most part new. So the biggest transition for me was being able to prepare every week in my math courses, I would have a quiz. So that meant that I had to be consistent. If I miss one class, you're immediately going to be a little bit behind, and you have to prepare for that and learn how to kind of balance that. The math program is also very much the first 2 years are pretty rigid. You don't really get much options, but after those first 2 years, you really get a lot more wiggle room of what type of math you want to be going into. So that includes pure math, statistics, and so I'm looking a little bit in statistics and also more so combinatorics and optimization, which I think is the coolest thing. It's how we optimize different things in our world. So after the first 2 years, you get to kind of expand on the areas that you're enjoying. On the BBA side, the first year, you take 6 mandatory courses over the 2 semesters. 2 of them are core business courses. And then you have 2 econ courses, micro and macro. If you took econ at chat, you will be so okay. It's not even funny. Like you'll be set very well. I think that's for all schools, not just Laurier. It covers probably 80% of what you're going to do there. And then an accounting course and a calc course If you're double degree, you don't take the accounting or calc, they move it later. But I know Laurier very much tries to weed people out. So they are going to try and give people bad marks first 2 semesters. So I think it's very scary for students coming in because on the first day they're going to try and give you this big fear speech about how half the people that are here aren't going to be here at the end of the semester and everyone's gets
Wow.
terrified. But it's one of those things where if you actually want to be there, you'll be able to do it without huge issues. Like obviously you study and keep up, but like
And
if
is
you
that
want
for
to.
just double degree students or everyone
No,
at
that's
Laurier?
BBA. That's BBA
Wow.
because so BBA lets in a lot more people than they should, but with the goal of weeding people out. So a lot of people end up being removed. And for double degree, it ends up being about 50% by the end of first year. They either switch into just
That's a
Waterloo or
big
switch
drop
into
off.
just Laurier. It's a big drop off. For context, I had a friend group in first semester of about 10 people studying together. There are only 2 of us left in the program.
Wow.
Ironically, the other one left is the other Jew that was in the group. So the Jews generally do well, but it's a lot of people end up switching out because it is very, very rigorous. You're doing a lot at once and it's a big jump. On the co-op program for double degree, it's mandatory. So you have to be doing co-op. Whereas for single degree at Laurier, it's you apply and try and get in, or you choose not to do it. I've had I'd say, unique co-op experience where my 2 co-op terms, so that's Brookfield and now BCI, I got my jobs through. I'll actually quickly explain how the co-op portal works, but essentially you have cycles where what happens is you can apply for jobs that are put on the portal. They give you hundreds and hundreds of jobs to look through, apply to them. You try and get interviews, and after you have an interview, you rank them and they rank you. So you get to see how the interviewers rank you. You either see ranked one, ranked somewhere between two and somewhere else, or not
Yeah.
ranked, and you can rank them back. So I've been lucky where I've been matched with a ranking both terms on my first cycle, which is not very common. I know a lot of people end up getting jobs outside of the co-op portal, which means that if you don't get into co-op, it's okay. Like I know a lot of people that chose not to do co-op in the end just so they could have summer positions, and that's been really helpful for them because for double degree, like my program, I only have one summer internship or co-op, and it's my first year, and after that, I don't get another one, which is really
Got
difficult
it.
because some companies do not offer all of their positions in off-cycle terms, and off-cycle being fall or winter.
Yeah.
So it makes it more difficult for me where I'm contemplating taking a semester off to do a co-op in the summer, if it makes sense. So there are upsides and downsides to the co-op program. I think it's great to be able to get a better sense and see what's on the portal, but without it, there's people do just fine as well. Though I think, although it's probably tougher to do now, just given the overall state of the economy. But
Yeah.
that's a whole other discussion. But
Um,
I think that's the
yeah.
overall overview.
Yeah, so you've enjoyed your time in the program. Do you think there's an inherent advantage to doing going to a university that has a co-op program versus one that doesn't? So I know Laurier does. I know McMaster's has a very cool co-op program, and a lot of people are actually going to Dow from our year now at Chat because of the co-op program they have there versus schools like Ivy and Commerce where the co-op isn't as specific and it's more summer internship. So if you could talk a little bit about the advantages you have in a co-op program versus someone who doesn't.
Yeah, so Dalhousie has a very similar co-op program to us, I know. They align similar schedule-wise as well. So I've worked with a few Dalhousie people at Brookfield, I know. They have a very good program. In general, I don't think it's necessarily a huge leg up comparing them. I know Ivy and Queens really pushes through networking and tries to push the importance of summer jobs, which in effect has a similar outcome to the co-op program. So I don't think it's necessarily choosing. I wouldn't then be like Laurier over Queens because of co-op. That's not how I would look at it. But I do know that there are advantages to the co-op program because it does immediately introduce you to who is hiring, and it also introduces you to a lot of companies that you may not immediately be thinking about. Um, Especially if you're talking, there are a lot of smaller accounting firms potentially that could be helping with that. But the other positive thing about the co-op portal is you're able to use your co-op advisor and try and get advice and work through them on that, which is a nice thing to have. But I wouldn't say it's some huge advantage necessarily. I think summer internships are have their upsides and downsides. There are more available positions, but also a lot more people competing. So if I were to be asked what's easier, applying for a summer job or applying for a fall or winter, I don't really know. I think it really just depends. So I wouldn't say it's a huge advantage.
Got it. And then, so the final thing I'll ask you is, what insight do you have for anyone interested in your specific program? If you could give one piece of advice to someone who just got in or is waiting to get in or thinking of accepting their offer.
100%. I think my program is a very weird program. I always question whether it should exist or not because I see how many people drop out because they don't want to do both. If you truly, and this goes for both the math double degree and the computer science one, if you truly love or truly want to do both a math and a business or a CS and a business degree, it is amazing. But you have to want to do both. Don't just do both because you think it'll be cooler to do a second degree, because you will start hating one of them and just want to drop it. I have, whenever anyone kind of asks to speak with me about the program, that's the number one piece of advice I give. And if I hear them kind of be like, yes, I want to do both, it almost always goes well. And if I hear the hesitation, they always drop it. So get a sense of if it's something you actually want to do and don't just kind of do it for an ego thing because that will not go well. But it is an amazing opportunity and really separates you. I also know that there are become we're now starting to get because the program is a newer program. It's I think started 2009. So they're now starting to also have places that like to hire directly from our program, which is a great thing to
Oh, that's
always
cool.
hear.
Yeah.
And I know they already have that with Ivy and Commerce, where people like to hire their own. But having that with double degree is always great, and having people looking out for that is really good in the job market. And I can guarantee you that in looking for my previous jobs and looking for future co-ops, it is always very nice to be able to say that I'm doing a math degree at Waterloo and BBA at Laurier.
Yeah. I was kind of in the discussion before I accepted. I got into the Laurier BBA and BA with the financial math and then the BBA with the computer science. But I I kind of agreed with what you said about like not having an ego. I felt like too much of why I had to pull to Laurier was like I have an ego to get a second degree. And to be honest, I don't think it would have been good based on the skills that I have. It wouldn't have maximized my potential. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Um, Thank you for giving your insight to the students. I know everyone will appreciate it. That's it. Thanks.